and gather round people wherever you roam, and admit that the waters around you have grown, and accept it that soon you'll be drowned.
The 1960s were the time of big changes both in culture and in music. Hippies were dissatisfied with the world that their parents had made, and they were looking for alternatives. The hippie subculture denied the material world and created their own reality filled with love and peace. Their values, beliefs, and lifestyle were expressed in music. Music was also the thing that helped spread hippie ideas all around the globe. Hippies had the strongest influence in America, but they turned the whole world upside down, leaving their mark forever.
Won't come again, and don't speak too soon, for the wheel's still in spin, and there's no telling who that it's named.
From the definition, subculture is a set of people with distinct behavior and beliefs within a larger culture. The essence of a subculture that distinguishes it from other social groups is awareness of style, differences in style, in clothing, music, or other interests.
Let it fly in the breeze and get caught in the trees. Give a home to the fleas in my hair. A home for fleas, a hive for the buzzing bees, a nest for birds. There ain't no words for the beauty, the splendor, the wonder of my hair.
Hippies had a distinct appearance, which was very controversial at the time. As Ronald Reagan said, they dressed like Tarzan, had hair like Jane, and smelled like cheetah. It was true that the hippies didn't bathe, shave, or cut their hair, but this was part of their statement. Having long hair was a strong sign of being a nonconformist. It was called letting your free flag fly. The hippies wore colorful clothes and jewelry, which were influenced by African and Asian styles and traditions. The hippies wanted to be close to nature, which was reflected in the materials they used to make their clothing, such as cotton, linen, and leather. They walked barefoot or wore sandals. Nudity was also embraced by hippies as an expression of freedom and love for nature. And last but not least were the flowers, which always surrounded them. Flower power was everywhere.
I don't know, I don't have words, man. That's all. I just have soul.
Another significant part of the hippie movement was their language. Hippies had to create totally new words to communicate their daily experiences for which there were no accurate expressions in current English. Catchy names like Purple Haze, Acid, and Orange Sunshine made the drugs sound much more appealing. Hippies took many words from other cultures, mainly from India. For example, yoga, karma, ashram, or mantra. Among hippies there were hardcore members as well as so-called plastic hippies who wanted to be a part of the subculture. They were people who didn't want to have long hair and beards for different reasons, such as working in an office. They wore wigs and fake beards during weekends and went crazy, and when the weekend was over they got back to their lives. Those who were the most committed to the hippie ideas and shared a vision of a utopian society lived in communes outside the commercial world, producing their own food and clothing. They were the first who rejected industrial for the natural and synthetic for the organic.
When the truth is found to be lies, and all the joy within you dies, don't you want somebody to love?
There were no formal relationships. Hippies believed in free love, having sex whenever, wherever, and with whomever. Public sex, group sex, homosexuality, all the taboos disappeared. Feeling of love was no longer limited to only one person. In fact, you were supposed to share love with everybody, not only with your sex partners. Love is to be shared freely. This profound truth was the base of the hippie movement. From this philosophy came their anti-war approach. Their beliefs were often manifested in protests and slogans like, "Make love, not war," and "Drop acid, not bombs." They were especially concerned about the Vietnam War and wanted it to end. Spiritualism was very important and became even more popular after the Beatles got involved with Indian spiritual figure Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. The hippies took influences from many different Eastern religions and ideologies and mixed them to their own advantage. Drugs were also a way to expand minds and reach a higher level of consciousness.
Lucy in the sky with diamonds. Lucy in the sky with diamonds. Lucy in the sky.
If you remember the 60s, you weren't there. This is a sentiment shared by many an old hippie. The 1960s was the largest uncontrolled experiment with using drugs in the whole history of mankind. LSD, DMT, purple haze, synthetic mescaline, orange sunshine, methamphetamine, marijuana, cocaine, even heroin. Hippies tried whatever they could get. Drug use was a very important ritual. It was something that was done together. Taking LSD became an almost religious sacrament. It was used to open minds. Drugs were a way to break on through to the other side.
Try to run, try to hide, break on through to the other side, break on through to the other side, break on through to the other side, yeah.
People like Timothy Leary, an ex-Harvard University professor, advocated the use of LSD for psychotherapy, self-exploration, religious and spiritual use. For obvious reasons, Leary received the nickname the Pope of Dope.
To the other side, break on through to the other side.
Music was one of the most important things in hippie culture. It was a way to express themselves politically, emotionally, and spiritually. Many of the legendary artists and bands that have influenced generations of musicians and continue to be an inspiration even today were considered part of the hippie culture. These include bands and artists like the Grateful Dead, the Jimi Hendrix Experience, Bob Dylan, Jefferson Airplane, The Doors, and Janis Joplin. Especially the Grateful Dead provided the psychedelic soundtrack to the consumption of LSD. The hippie psychedelia became even more mainstream when the previously clean-cut boys from the Beatles and the Beach Boys started taking influence from the hippies. The tradition of outdoor music festivals that is huge in today's world can be largely accredited to the hippies. The festival started in 1965 with Ken Kesey's acid tests. These were parties where the Grateful Dead usually played, jamming psychedelically on LSD. The purpose of the acid tests was mainly to advocate the use of LSD. Later, the outdoor music concerts became more and more popular. The most important festival of the 60s was Woodstock. It was held from the 15th to the 18th August 1969 in Bethel, New York. The organizers expected around 200,000 people to attend the concert, but eventually 500,000 showed up. The concert lineup consisted of big names such as Jimi Hendrix, The Who, Santana, Creedence Clearwater Revival, Jefferson Airplane, and Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young. The facilities and services were not designed for such an enormous crowd, and the weather was bad as well. Despite all this, the hippies truly displayed peace, love, and understanding. There were only a few policemen at the festival, but they weren't needed. During the weekend, everybody coexisted in harmony, and there weren't really any trouble or disturbances. The hippie subculture was an unusual social experiment. It wasn't just about drugs or sex. It was an experiment in lifestyle, political expression, art, and an experiment especially in music. The messages sang by Bob Dylan, Janis Joplin, and others helped people identify with significant issues that concerned them all as a society. These songs made people think, dream, change the world, and feel as one people. Music was the statement and the voice of the movement. The music could get you high, even without drugs.